Hey guys, so I'm starting out the new year with a cold, so let's just ignore that. This video would have been up earlier, but this is the soonest I could film it with being sick. So I wanted to do a video on my most anticipated horror films to be released in 2019. This isn't going to be I'm not going to cover every movie that is coming out in 2019, every horror movie that is. This is just my personal top 10 list of the 10 most anticipated films for horror films for 2019, but I think horror is a given on this channel. Yeah, I'm gonna go in order by which they're going to be released, or at least the ones that have a release date. The first two on the list, however, do not have a release date as of the day that I'm filming this video. The first movie on my list is 3 from Hell, which is a Rob Zombie film. It's actually the third in the trilogy, I guess you would call it, of House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. There isn't a set release date for this yet, but they did start editing in September of 2018, so it should be out hopefully in the first half of 2019. They postponed post-production for about 5 months because of Rob Zombie's tour with Marilyn Manson that happened in the summer of 2018, and Rob Zombie says that the film should only take around 5 to 6 months to complete editing. So based on that timeline and the summer tour ending in August, September, we should at minimum be getting a release date really soon. 3 from Hell will be Rob Zombie's 5th horror film, and I really love Rob Zombie films. I like that they're gritty, they're like intense usually. My favorite film that he's ever done has been 31, which came out recently. I think that's his most recent film next to this one, and it was just phenomenal. Highly recommend. There isn't a lot known about the movie 3 from Hell. Rob Zombie did release a teaser trailer earlier in 2018, and he also says it's going to be something new for the viewers, something we haven't seen before from him. But Bill Moseley did say that it's going to be full of gratuitous violence, which to me sounds exactly like a Rob Zombie film, so maybe we'll get a mix of both. We'll still get the Rob Zombie gratuitous violence, but we'll also get something new. Next movie also does not have a release date, and that is In the Tall Grass, which is actually originally a novella written by Stephen King and Joe Hill. This movie is directed by Vincenzo Natali, who also directed Cube, which I recently watched, and that was an interesting ride. It also stars Patrick Wilson, which we all know and love from the Conjuring franchise and the Insidious franchise. So the plot of In the Tall Grass is basically a brother and sister are on a road trip, and they are in Kansas, and they decide to turn the radio off, have the windows down, and they're just cruising along the highway when they hear screams for help. They decide to pull over to find the source of the yelling, since it does seem like it's coming from a child, and then there's this field of tall grass which appears to be where the cries are coming from. So they enter the tall grass, and then that is where the horror takes place. Now actually, while researching for this video, I decided to purchase and read the novella, so I did that for you guys. It is a Stephen King story I have yet to read, so I was excited to read it. It's just a novella, so it's pretty short, pretty fast read, but let me tell you, the story gets so dark and disturbing. I have no idea if they're going to be able to even show some of the things that happen in the story, because it is just not something that's going to sit well with many viewers, even in the horror genre. A part of me hopes that they stay true to the novella, but I have a feeling they're going to alter it in some way, or at the very least imply the events that occur in the tall grass. Seems a bit morbid for me to actually want them to stay true to the story, because the story is so morbid. I still think they're going to edit it in some way to make it a little less gratuitous and a little bit less obvious of the things that transpire, but it is a very dark, morbid story, so if you're in the mood for something like that, it's kind of hard to recommend because it is so disturbing. But if you like disturbing, definitely read the novella before you watch the movie. Now we're gonna get on to all the movies that actually do have release dates for a point of reference, so something we can look forward to with a hard date. First up being Ascape Room. This comes out the day I'm filming this, today, the January 3rd. So my next video actually will be the review for this film, so stay tuned. 2018 was actually my first year of trying escape rooms, like in real life. I did 2 in the last year and fell in love with them. I did 2 horror themed ones, of course. I wouldn't really want to do any other themed escape room if it wasn't horror. So when I heard that there was a horror movie coming out that was based on an escape room, I was immediately intrigued. However, when I saw the trailer, like the full trailer in the theater when I was watching something else, I think The Possession of Hannah Grace, I was a little bit disappointed with the trailer. The concept seems super high-tech and over the top, and you know, veers away from the traditional type escape room. So it's definitely less relatable. If you've ever done an escape room, you've definitely never done one like what's in the movie. However, I get it's Hollywood, they have to make it a little bit more over the top to make it a full-length feature film and, like, you know, make it interesting. So the movie is actually directed by Adam Robitel, who I had the pleasure of meeting at the Insidious event down in LA earlier last year. He's known for working on Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, Insidious: The Last Key, of course, and my favorite of his work, The Taking of Deborah Logan. The beginning of the movie kind of sounds a little bit like House on Haunted Hill, where there are a group of strangers that are invited to partake in this game, and they are promised a large sum of money, in this case $1 million, if they survive. And then it turns a little bit Jigsaw on us when they realize that the traps in the rooms are all filled with deadly puzzles. Now, generally, I just think the storyline's a little bit unrealistic, because if I was promised $1 million for escaping an escape room, one, I wouldn't think it's any ordinary escape room, and two, I wouldn't go, because there's bound to be a huge catch to that. Generally, I think the movie might be overall a little bit disappointing, but it is a cool idea. It's an original idea, so I am still excited for it, even if the general theme of the movie has been done before. The next movie is a Jake Gyllenhaal, Toni Collette Netflix film. It's going to be straight to Netflix, comes out on February 1st, and that is Velvet Buzzsaw. There isn't a lot of information on this movie. It is listed as a horror thriller, so we shall see. On IMDb, it says, big money artists and mega collectors pay a high price when art collides with commerce. And then we get a photo of Jake Gyllenhaal looking like this. So that's basically all the information we have, but I love a good Jake Gyllenhaal movie in general. I love a good Netflix film. They've been really hitting it with that original content. And I love Toni Collette and John Malkovich, so I feel like we can't lose in this situation, but we shall see. I will be reviewing it. The next movie I am very excited about, and based on the feedback after the trailer was released, it looks like everyone else is excited too, and that is the movie Us. This comes out March 15th, which is around my birthday, so this will be my birthday movie. So this movie, of course, is done by Jordan Peele, which gave us no other than Get Out, which was a huge hit in 2017. I think there's not very many people that didn't enjoy that movie, so I am excited to see what else he has in store for us. I like his take on horror usually. So this stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and Elizabeth Moss, which are all amazing actors, so I'm so excited. The storyline is super cool. It's basically a family is going to their beach house when some visitors arrive uninvited, when they realize that the visitors are them. They look just like them and apparently think just like them, which makes escaping impossible. And so it becomes either we die or they die, essentially. What I thought was interesting is Jordan Peele told the cast to watch these specific 10 movies. So everyone that is in the movie had to watch these 10 films, so they're all have a shared language while they're filming the movie. And based on the 10 films, we are definitely in for a good movie if they're anything like them. They are Dead Again, The Shining, The Babadook, It Follows, A Tale of Two Sisters, The Birds, Funny Games, Martyrs, Let the Right One In, and The Sixth Sense. The movie does kind of look like it's a combination of Funny Games and It Follows, so I think it's going to be a really original take on horror, and I'm really excited. It's probably one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Next up, we have none other than Pet Sematary. This comes out on April 5th. Obviously, this is a remake of the original Pet Sematary, which was actually the first horror film I ever watched, guys. It was also the first Stephen King book that I have ever read, so this movie is very sentimental to me. Some are complaining that it doesn't need a remake, like some would argue it didn't need a remake. I beg to differ, because I think the new It is much better than the original It. I know that's like a controversial opinion, but it's true. I'm most excited to see the story on the big screen. Whether it flops or fails or succeeds or is really good is here nor there for me. I know that's like kind of, it's a weird opinion, but for me, it's just, I know I'm gonna like it. I'm a little bit biased with this movie and the story. I'm very connected with it, and it's a sentimental thing for me. So obviously it's one of my most anticipated movies coming out in 2019. We probably all know the plot by now, but basically a family moves into a house and they discover a burial ground that is deep in the woods next to their house, and they soon discover that what gets buried there doesn't always stay buried there. Stephen King himself has said that of all his novels, this is the one that has scared him the most, so now, one of the things I think this movie has going for it is the directing duo of Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Wiedmeyer. They directed one of my favorites, Starry Eyes, and also Holidays, which I think is an amazing movie as well. I reviewed both of them, actually. I'll link them down below. And they're also directing, or said to be directing, Mama 2, which is listed to come out this year and would be on the list if there was more information about it, but there is literally nothing that I could find about it other than the fact that these two are directing it. Mama is one of my favorite movies of all time. Guillermo del Toro worked on it, and I hope that he works on Mama 2. I have a feeling the sequel is not going to be as good as the original. Anyway, but what are your thoughts on the remake of Pet Sematary? Are you upset about it? Do you love the original? Do you think it didn't need a remake? Because the original is so amazing. Unlike, I think It wasn't my favorite Stephen King book adaptation film, Pet Sematary did do a really good job, I think. So you tell me, what are your thoughts? I think you guys would appreciate my pants. These are my pajamas. Pretty cool, right? Next up we have Curse of La Llorona, which comes out April 19th. This is based on a Mexican folklore kind of terrifying tale. The tale is about a young woman named Maria who had drowned her kids in a river and then drowned herself, and the tale is the folklore is that if you hear her cries that something bad will happen to you, and if children see her then they will be dragged to the nearest river to be drowned. I've seen lots of people from the Mexican heritage be concerned about the movie and that it probably won't do the tale that they grew up hearing justice, so I'm really hoping that the trailer that we get, I mean, we don't get a lot of backstory of the plot, so I'm hoping that it does do it justice. I won't know for sure because I did not grow up hearing this, obviously, so I didn't even know about it until this movie. So I'd love for any of you who are from the Mexican heritage and grew up listening to this tale, leave your feedback down below. What are your thoughts? And also when the movie is released and you see it, please tell me what you think about it so I can take that into consideration when I'm doing my review for it. Now this is produced by James Wan, and many are thinking that it's part of the Conjuring universe, which I don't understand how that would make the connection, but okay. It is just a rumor, it's not true. James Wan is actually testing this director out, who is Michael Chavez, before he gives him the director spot for The Conjuring 3, so he's kind of testing the waters. I kind of don't like the fact he's testing the waters on this movie in particular with a new director before putting him on The Conjuring 3. It's almost like he's putting that above The Curse of La Llorona, which I understand, The Conjuring's kind of his baby, but at the same time I feel like then we have the risk of The Curse of La Llorona not doing well and just flopping. So there is some controversy around this movie, but it is said to be kind of the Mexican version of Mama, so with that in mind, I'm really excited for it. Next up we have Brightburn, which comes out May 24th, and this I'm so excited about because we are finally getting a superhero horror movie. The movie is basically Superman meets horror. Now, superhero movies are not my thing. I could care less about them, to be honest. I've seen some. I like Batman, sure. But if there's horror involved, you can sign me up, because I think that concept is so cool, and why it hasn't been done yet, I don't know. Now, this is produced by James Gunn, which I think is the perfect person to work on this movie because he's done superhero films and he's also done horror films. So I think, you know, he is the perfect person to kind of marry the two. The movie basically has the same beginning plot of Superman, where a couple is dreaming of a baby and they have one crash onto their property essentially, and it's a baby boy. However, it's not a baby boy, it's obviously an alien, and the alien has superpowers and as it gets older turns evil, and not just like a villain kind of evil, but like serial killer kind of evil. So it looks like it's going to be much darker, obviously, than a Superman storyline, which I think is really cool. The next movie is probably the one that I'm most excited about. However, I have the most fear in me of this going so poorly, so fingers crossed this turns out to be super good, but Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. If you grew up in the 90s, I think it's safe to say that you're well aware of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and you grew up with it and reading it, and if anything, you have a little curiosity of the movie. This is a kind of movie that can either go one of two ways for the fans of Scary Stories who grew up, you know, reading them. It could either be super well done and exciting for us fans, or it could be really terrible and nothing like the books and just fail. So the description of the film as of right now says, teens band together to solve the mystery of macabre deaths in their small town. I think this premise is really cool. It's a cool like backstory as far as like how we're gonna be fed these stories. I'm still a little curious how that's going to happen. I think it's gonna be really difficult to translate Alvin Schwartz's stories and Stephen Gammell's art onto a live action movie, but I think what really saves this concept is the crew working on it. Thank God we have some really amazing people behind this, because otherwise this could totally just go so wrong. So the director is Andre Overdahl, who is known for The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Now, that's not my favorite movie in the world. I kind of have like the minority opinion here. I wasn't a huge fan of The Autopsy of Jane Doe, but that's just me. It was okay, and I definitely think it's now much better after seeing The Possession of Hannah Grace, which I think was a knockoff of it. And then we have our savior, Guillermo del Toro, as the producer, who is my favorite horror mastermind next to Stephen King. So I feel like that alone, we're gonna get some great imagery. If anyone can translate Stephen Gamble's art onto live action and onto the big screen, it's going to be Guillermo del Toro. Stephen Gamble's art is the best part of Scary Stories. I think there's no denying that, and that was proven when they tried to re-release the stories and the books without Stephen Gamble's art to make it a little less scary for children. No one was receptive to that. No one was a fan of that. Finally, we're getting to the very last film on my most anticipated horror movies of 2019, and I think this goes without saying that it's everyone's most anticipated horror of 2019, and that is It Chapter 2. This comes out September 6th, and I think it's safe to say that this probably won't disappoint current It fans. For those of us who really enjoyed the first part of It, the remake, I think we're really gonna enjoy the second part, if not for the story and seeing the remake on the big screen from the book and from the original. It's going to be for the cast. I think that is the best part as of now, obviously, because we don't know everything about It Chapter 2 yet, but the cast that they have selected to play the losers grown is phenomenal. I don't really need to go into the backstory of the plot of this part of It or anything. I think we're all pretty well aware, especially if we've seen the original. So including this movie, it looks like we're gonna get 3 Stephen King stories on the big screen this year, and as someone who has been obsessed with Stephen King for 15 years, I am so excited. Like, this is the year of Stephen King. Yes, 2 are remakes, but still, it's 3 stories on the big screen, and I am just so pumped. So those are my top 10 movies that I am most looking forward to in 2019. Please feel free to share your list down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.